In life, we all have problems. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's not the problem that is the thing adding the emotional intensity. Sometimes that emotional weight and strain comes from the overthinking that we have in our own minds. And so today we're going to be looking at the top 5 things that we say to ourselves that are absolutely rubbish. Number 1, I'm not good enough. Good enough for what? You see, the problem here is that it's so vague, isn't it? I used to do it all the time. I'd say, I'm not good enough in my mind, but I wouldn't specify the problem or the thing that I wanted. I wouldn't even tell myself, yeah, I really actually want this thing, but I don't feel good enough to achieve it. I'd just say I'm not good enough. Because of this, what you're actually doing is you're removing the opportunity to get what you want. What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. Well, as with the vague statement, it's like going into a restaurant and saying, I'd like some food, please. And the restaurateur's saying, yes, we serve food. What's going to happen? They're going to bring you a meal that you might not enjoy, most likely the most expensive one, right? And you're going to sit there miserable because that's not the food you wanted, but you wasn't specific enough. Herein lies the secret to uncovering how to break this pattern. I'm not good enough. For what? It could also be the fact that you're overestimating how good you are at a skill or at a certain thing in life. So for example, you might want to sing, do art, apply for positions, anything like this. It could be something you want to do and you know consciously you want to do it. However, when you go to try and do it, you understand that you've not got the skill set yet. But the question there again, have you spent time, effort, energy in order to develop that skill? The question then isn't that you're not good enough. The question then is that you have not spent enough time dedicating yourself to improve a skill set. In other words, you're too impatient and you're too lazy. And that's fine, but it's at least defining that there is an opportunity there that you can grow and develop rather than just saying you're not good enough. Because guess what? You are good enough. So step 1, I'm not good enough. For what? Step 2. No one cares. No one's bothered about you, really? Nobody cares about you? Isn't it true that even people you might have not met, say celebrities, maybe someone who serves you at the pub every weekend, someone you don't even know, that if they passed, you'd feel sad, you'd feel down, and you would care about said person? Okay, great. So we can sort of say that there could be even strangers you don't understand that do care about you. So the question isn't, does anyone care about me? The question is, why do you feel like no one cares about you? And this, again, inherently lies that you have rules within yourself, rules that you've built over time that are not being met. You see, for me, it was, if no one's contacted me, nobody's messaging me, nobody's reaching out to me, in a moment that I'm sad, that I've not told anyone I'm sad, if nobody's reaching out to me in a moment where I feel sad, then that means no one cares about me. Well, that's a flawed system, right? How is anyone going to know that I'm upset, stressed, or anything in that moment? They're not. Everyone's busy with their own lives. So a question again is, what rules do you have that make you feel like no one cares? What would you need to happen in order to know that someone does really care about you? And it could be as simple as you actually refiltering your brain, looking through that confirmation bias of no one cares, looking past that and trying to find the evidence to say, well, I have got friends that care. Obviously they care. They're just busy. Well, this is again another solution. Once you figure out the exact rule that you're using to make yourself feel like no one cares, that is when you can actually reach out to these people and provide value to them. You can either tell them memories that you used to have, you can reconnect or tell them a story, tell them why you appreciate them, or even so, be so transparent that you just turn around and say, hey, I'm feeling a bit lonely tonight. I'm feeling like no one cares about me. And seeing what kind of reception you get just from being transparent. This will completely change that belief system that no one cares. So, what are your rules for people caring about you anyway? Everyone has a different rule set and a belief system. And it's important that you communicate that to others so that no one feels that they're breaking your rules. One of my friends actually thinks that if you don't communicate with them often, then you're not a close friend. Whereas other friends I know spend years apart, and then when they re-meet are still as close as the day they last spoke. These are different rule sets, but within that lies your happiness and feeling as if someone cares. Step number 3, the third thing that we say to ourselves that's absolutely rubbish is, I've always been this way. You've always been this way? So when you came out as a baby, you started to look around and go, everything sucks. Or maybe you turned around the first time you was having cake, you started going, oh, this is awful, this is terrible. No, you probably munched the cake, and as a child, you was probably full with a bit of wonderment, a bit of excitement. However, as times grew, as your belief system started to change, even as you had some emotional patterns happen over time that put you down or made you more anxious, made you less courageous, maybe even made you depressed because your reality was not fitting in with the story you told yourself. At the end of the day, what's happened there is that you've built a habit of self-communication and a habit of analysing what you're currently going through compared to what's happening around you. Over time, these habits, what they become is connection to someone who's overweight. What are you talking about? Well, someone who's overweight, basically, are they a fat person? Well, you might say yes, in that moment they are fat. Is it possible said fat person, no fat shaming here, could lose said weight? Well, of course. What would they need to do to lose the weight they've put on? Now, remember, they might have put on weight, but that doesn't make them a fat individual forever. That's not who they are. Do you know what I'm saying? In addition to this, it's the same way with your mind. If you have the same habits that are self-defeating, putting yourself down, stuck in a rut, likelihood is that's something that you've built over time that's just become the way you see reality. However, with the right kind of changes, the right kind of steps, you can actually change it so that your mind is someone of a healthy individual. Does that make sense? And because of this, when you say to yourself, I've always been this way, what you're doing is removing all responsibility and all opportunity in order to change. And that is a detriment, because now you are not only stuck in suffering, you are ignorant to improvement. So, I've always been this way. When did it start? And let's see how we can change it. Step number 4, things won't change. Well, have you ever been there yourself where you're thinking, you know, this is who I am, this is how things have been for so long, and things won't get better? Oftentimes, this is what actually causes depression. It's the hopelessness of opportunity and hopelessness that you are always going to be trapped in this feeling of either depression or feeling like you won't get what you know would be good for you. But when you actually look at the evidence of life, of how things work, what you'll notice is that things change by default. Without push, without force, you can see, seasons changing. You can see people getting older. And with this, the whole universal matter, what you're doing is that you're saying, right now, I'm stuck where I am, and that is all I'll ever be. But that's ridiculous, because every single day is an opportunity for you to change. So why are you feeling like it'll always be the same? Well, the real question is, if you're getting the same result day in and day out, are you doing anything new? Or are you just repeating the same pattern that's giving you the exact same results? This is what we were just talking about. Without change, you don't change. But things do change naturally. And if you don't start to improve, what you tend to see is that things get worse. Again, it boils down to a lack of identifying the true problem and being bold enough to find the courage, the right solution, and stop being so hard on yourself and having to be perfect. In the end, it's just about getting it done. It's about finding what you would need to change in order to feel better about yourself, and then finding the first step rather than looking at the peak of the mountain. Rather than saying, I need to do all these things, you just ask yourself, what one thing can I do today that may change my life to get what I want? And at number 5, last but not least, it's easier for them. Is this something that you consistently tell yourself? Is this something that you say, well, it's easier for them who are in a better position, or easier for someone to be stronger, more courageous, easier for someone else to be happier because they've got more than you? The question is that true? And how much responsibility does that remove from you from actually getting better? It's a classic line I used to use all the time. I've had it harder than these other people. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's not for as easy for me. I've been through all this. But what we have to understand is that everyone is faced with unique challenges. And it's not about how difficult a challenge may seem or emotionally feel. It is genuinely just about looking at the challenges from what your perspective is and how you can deal with it rather than expecting everyone else to fall in line with your problems. The question isn't the challenge in front of you, but the person you are. And if you avoid the responsibility, which includes facing fears, it includes doing things that you're actually afraid of, it includes being uncomfortable. If you're avoiding being uncomfortable or ringing that person you need to ring for that bill or applying for a job that you know would improve your life, but you feel uncomfortable in doing so, there's fear there. If you continue to let the small little fears win day in, day out, they build and you lose character. You lose strength and courage. And ignoring problems actually increases the size and weight of your other problems. Your ability to deal with challenges is a mental muscle, and building courage is also a mental muscle. It's discipline. It's akin to building muscle in the gym. Now, you wouldn't go to the gym on the first day, pick up the heaviest weight that you can see, and expect to rep 50 reps, right? What would happen? You'd injure yourself. You'd get hurt. Maybe you've tried this in a place where you don't feel courageous, you feel anxious, you feel depressed, and you're trying to take on something that's so big, it feels overwhelming. And when you do try, it doesn't work out and you get hurt. This is the same concept. And so with that, what you need to do is start with the small mental weights first and push yourself over time so that you build the mental muscle to deal with bigger problems. Nutrition of the mind are the things you listen to, the people you listen to, and the way you talk to yourself is also key to this. How do we start then? Start with small tasks that you could do that you may be feeling are too small to be important. Start with cleaning your room, a classic line by Jordan Peterson, but it's so important. You see, what we tend to do is we ignore the small little things we know we should do because we think that they're too menial, they don't matter, they're too small. But in actual fact, what the small little tasks do are similar to picking up the small weights in the beginning. It's getting your room in order before you sort out the house and getting your house in order before you sort out the street. It's essential to you developing character, courage, and discipline starts with you doing little things that are only slightly uncomfortable in a safe space and building it until you get better. What would be an example of this? An example of this, of course, would be watching our videos. If you like this kind of stuff and you've enjoyed this episode, feel free to click the link below. See you over there at Fulfillment Flicks, where you can actually learn the tricks, techniques, strategies, and concepts, as well as philosophies, in order to develop yourself to go after the lifestyle that would be good for you and that would help serve people around you. Thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed the 5 things we say to ourselves that are absolutely rubbish. See you later.